So what's Darwinism?
Survival of the fittest.
Oh, that's a beautiful phrase. Survival of the fittest. Let's see. Does anybody know where that phrase comes from?
Charles Darwin.
No.
And like his study on the island that he went to or something.
I mean this phrase specifically, survival of the fittest. Who first said it?
Oh, no.
Ariana, who first said it?
Darwin?
Who?
Darwin?
No. It's no more true now than it was 15 seconds ago when he said it. Who said it? You know. You know. How would I know she knows?
She just said it.
Because she just said it. Who said it? No, not her. She didn't invent it. Yes. Herbert Spencer. Herbert Spencer is the guy who invented the phrase of survival of the fittest. And it's based off of what he referred to as social Darwinism. Social Darwinism is exactly what it sounds like. Survival of the fittest in what context?
People.
People, yeah. So when you look at society and you apply this principle of I mean, Darwin wasn't exactly that, survival of the fittest. It was those who adapt best and all that. But this comes specifically from Herbert Spencer, and he's talking specifically about society. In other words, the rich become richer. Why? Because they're better. They're more fit for survival, specifically in the context that you created. Does that mean that they're better people? No. If you take them out of the context of our society and you put them into a different society, it isn't necessarily true that they're going to rise to the top of that society. In other words, there are some people who are more fit to live in the society in which they're born. There are some people who are less fit to live in the society in which they're born. This idea, however, takes root, and especially in the early 20th century, a little bit after he dies, you see this phrase used to justify all kinds of social behavior. Should we help the poor? Well, no. Why? Because they're poor because they deserve to be poor. Survival of the fittest. Is it okay for me to stab you in the back and steal from you? Not really. I shouldn't do it within the confines of society. But if it means not breaking the law, well then yeah. As long as I'm not breaking the law of that society, then sure. I can kind of do whatever I want to do to rise to the top. And it's used to justify all kinds of social interactions. It's used to justify social classes and social positions. And so you take this very simple idea of animals, that the animals that are most likely to adapt are most likely to pass on their genes to the next generation and propagate. This is now starting to be applied in a society. And the reason I ask you to, if anybody looked this guy up, because I have him identified as an English sociologist, but he is more than that. I guess you could say he's an English philosopher. I didn't put philosopher because I imagine we're tired of hearing about philosophers already, because like I said, it's March. But he is one, but he's also a sociologist, and primarily his philosophy, or I guess his process of sociology, you think of it as, is called anarchism. He's an anarchist. And we almost read an essay by him this year. Well, sorry, it was one of the essays I almost put on the list of stuff that we would actually never ever get to. But I would put on the list anyway because I wanted to look at it. But he writes an essay on the moral right, or I guess the moral duty, but at least the moral right to break the law, to avoid the law. So he argues in favor of that. Because he argues that all laws are oppressive, because it stops this process of the fittest. He argues that weak people band together, create laws, and that those laws are generally designed to try to suppress strong people, to keep strong people in check. Which is a weird thing coming from him when you look at kind of like his overall philosophy. It holds together, but it almost seems contradictory in certain ways. Anyway, he's an anarchist. So what is anarchism? Yeah.
Is it kind of like chaos and like there's no order?
Interesting. Yes. That's one of the definitions.
We want to like overthrow the government.
Kind of.
Power.
Kind of, yeah. So these things come. I guess these things apply. Essentially, it's the idea of no government. So you overthrow a government, and now there's no government. I don't think it was in this class that we read Henry David Thoreau. Henry David Thoreau is an American writer who wrote a wonderful essay called Civil Disobedience. I guess if you want extra credit, you can read Civil Disobedience. And then I'll give you some stuff on it. It's an incredible essay. In short, it's about a guy who is living during the Mexican-American War, Henry David Thoreau. And he sees that America, in his mind, America picked a fight with Mexico so that we could conquer parts of Mexico to add to the United States. And he's against this. So he's trying to figure out what it is that one man can do in order to fight against something like that. So he decides the best thing that he could possibly do is not participate in the system that he condemns. So he stops paying taxes. And the idea is every dollar I pay in taxes then goes to fund this war in Mexico, which I find morally objectionable. It's not just that he disagrees with it. It's not just that he thinks it's an unnecessary war. He looks at it as actually an immoral war. So he stops paying his taxes. Sheriff comes to him and says, "Hey, dude, Henry, you haven't paid your taxes." And he's like, "Yeah." He's like, "You gotta pay your taxes." And he said, "Nah." And he's like, "Why not?" So he goes on to explain, because, you know, if every dollar I put into the system, blah, 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 all I just explained. And the sheriff was like, "That's fascinating, but dude, you gotta pay your taxes." And he's like, "Nah." "Well, then you're going to jail." So he says, "Okay." So he goes to jail. Yeah.
Didn't you teach this?
I thought so.
I remember reading it. Online.
Oh.
I was in your class. Well, I remember reading it, and I remember the jail part, and I remember I was reading it to my mom too. I don't know why. I remember the name. It's the
Civil disobedience?
Yeah, disobedience. I was like, why does that sound so familiar? He explained the taxes he didn't want to pay. He went into jail.
Yeah.
Now I remember.
Yay.
Yeah, I remember that.
Nice. So he goes to jail, and his friends come to him, and his friends end up paying his taxes for him, and he's like, "No, I don't want to." They pay the taxes anyway. But this essay, Civil Disobedience, it's so incredibly quotable. It's like every 2 or 3 sentences he says something that you sit there and go like, "Wow, yeah." You know, there's so many. I could fill up an entire semester of these things just with the things that Henry David Thoreau said. But there's stuff that's in there that's so incredibly powerful. Like he says, that I must see to it at any rate, I do not participate in evils that I condemn. So even if things around you are going badly, a lot of times we have this tendency to just say, "Well, you know what? Can't beat them, join them," or, "Well, that's just the way things are," and then we kind of go along with it. But that's exactly how evil propagates. People just go along with it. People don't resist it. So then what happens if you resist it? Well, you might pay a price for that. But you're going to pay a price for everything that you do in life. You're going to pay a price for everything you do, and you're also going to pay a price for everything that you don't do in life. You're going to pay the price. It's just like I said, you're going to suffer. But choose what you're going to suffer for. You're going to pay the price. Figure out what price you're going to pay. You're also going to drink poison in life. The question is, how much poison do you want to drink? You want to drink it now? In other words, you want to struggle now and try to overcome things now? Or do you want to try to live a life of ease, and then later on in life, you're not ready for life, and so now you're drinking poison later on, and you're suffering then? You want to suffer now for a better life later on? Or do you want to take an easy time now for a worse life later on? It's your call. That's one of those tragedies of youth, and I hate saying stuff like that, but it's absolutely true. It's one of those tragedies of being young, that we have so many distractions and things that stop us from really internalizing what I just said to you. And you're not going to find a single human being on the face of the planet, literally, who's not going to express that exact same sentiment. I wish that when I was younger, I had fill in the blank of something more of. And you're not going to, again, you're not going to find a single human being on the face of the planet who doesn't understand that concept of drinking poison now or later. And yet, so few of us are willing to accept it. We're ready to accept it when we're younger, by the way. We have this notion in our head, well, you know, young people, they're not ready to receive things. Oh, you're not ready to receive things, true. But that doesn't mean you're not capable of it. Of course you're capable of it. If you're capable of understanding the words coming out of my mouth right now, then you're capable of internalizing this concept. It's just that we create an environment where it's so comfortable and easy not to accept those things that you're told. We make it easy to we make it easy to reject pertinent, good advice. And then when people fail later on, we're very understanding about it. Well, you know, people make mistakes. Yeah. Do you have to make so many about things you've been warned so desperately about? Oftentimes we think, well, you know, people just have to make their own mistakes. Do you really believe that, though? Does anybody really believe that? You have to make your own mistakes? If you did, you would live very differently. Well, first off, you'd be dead right now. Should you drink bleach? Well, you know, you gotta make your own mistakes, right? When you're a little kid and there's boiling water on the stove, I guess I could turn the handle inward so you can't walk by, grab it, pull it down on you. In fact, I should leave it out, right? Because everyone's gonna make their own mistakes. We're very selective about the kinds of mistakes that we have to make in life. And isn't it strange how all the mistakes in life that we have to make on our own are things that we actually want to do? Like it goes back to like, you know, should you abuse drugs? Of course not. It's like I was talking yesterday about heroin. Like obviously I've never used heroin before. I know people who have. But my God, in terms of addictive substances, there's almost, first of all, they don't even know what heroin is. And we're like, no, I don't know what it is, but you know what? Fuck it. Inject it. Does anybody know what cocaine is? Nope, don't know what it is exactly. Don't know anything about how it interacts with my brain, but you know, I'll snort a line from here down to the gym. Why? Gotta make my own mistakes. You know what you should do is forego that party and study instead. You know, you might miss out on the good times. Oh, my friends are going to be there. Yeah, they're all going to be there. But you know what? Maybe it's a mistake not to go to the party. But don't you have to make your own mistakes? No, not those kinds of mistakes. The kinds of mistakes that actually feed into the things that I want to do and justify me doing those things that I want to do. I don't know if you've ever heard it before, that we all have thoughts that would shame the devil.
We talked about it
Exactly.
last week.
Exactly. So hopefully, again, I know some of you have picked up on this, but hopefully you notice that all of these things connect. All of these things web together and are interrelated. They're not just pulled out of a book and thrown into a PowerPoint. So the kinds of mistakes that we have to make, they do exist, because there are some things that you can learn no other way than through experience. This is absolutely true. It's such an odd thing how selective we are, and how much we shut out the people who tell us otherwise, who tell us the truth about those things. Maybe it's because we're so incredibly accepting of people who make mistakes, because maybe we're really, really, really deep down hoping that people will be accepting of the mistakes that we make, rather than being harder on ourselves about the mistakes that we make. And there's a balance there. Of course, you don't want to be the person who beats the hell out of yourself for every mistake that you make. But you want to be the person who absolutely learns from every mistake that you make, and how it is that you learn from that mistake. And by the way, you can figure out if you learn from your mistakes by whether or not you keep making them. Anybody in here have a favorite mistake that you make all the time? Yeah, we all have favorite mistakes. Some of them would shame the devil. But in these things that really deeply matter, we should grow. We should stop making these mistakes, because it stops us from growing as a person. It stops us from being a better person. You know, there are these three measurements of a person. First off, what a person is. In other words, your character, who you are as a person. Another measurement is what a person has, the stuff that you've accumulated in life. Stuff, money, house, cars, things like that. Things which people say don't matter, but of course they do matter. Of course they matter. And then lastly, what people think a person is. Your reputation, your fame. So the measurement is what a person is, what a person has, and what people think a person is. Your reputation. Those last two things, man. Can you lose the things that you have? Of course you can. Of course you can. Economic downturns, bad decisions, corruption, somebody coming along and taking away your $1 billion because you're doing the right thing and investigating corruption. You can lose your reputation. Hell, the guy who was investigating and doing the right thing for corruption, he lost his reputation, lost his job. There's no concern for that guy who lost his job and the fact that he had bills and a family to take care of and his mortgage and all that. No concern for that. This person's doing the wrong thing. Well, you should, fire him anyway. So, and he lost his reputation for doing the right thing. So, you can lose your reputation pretty quickly if the right or wrong people, don't like what you're doing. So it looks like the only thing you cannot lose is your character, what a person is. It is a tragedy, I guess, in the sense that people may never know who you are. If you do the right things, people may still say the terrible things about you. But perhaps the important people know who you are. And maybe those are the things of everlasting joy and reward. But we do get caught up in those last two things. Unfortunately, this doesn't lend to that. Unfortunately, what Spencer talks about with regards to survival of the fittest doesn't lend to maximizing that. But interestingly enough, if there is no God, then I don't see what's wrong with this. Because if we're just animals, we don't get angry at the lions for being the fittest and surviving and competing and being victorious. We don't get pissed off at the meerkat for not being above the line on the food chain. It accepts its role, because that's what it is. It can survive very well in its role. But we don't expect a meerkat to become a lion. This isn't a Disney movie or a Pixar movie. So if that's the case, well then, why do we get so upset about how we treat each other? Seems like it would be okay, because that's all it is. It's just trying to see who the strongest lion is. But it's interesting. There's something in us that tells us differently. I'll leave it at that, though. Questions, comments, concerns, complaints, criticisms, critiques? Yeah.
Do you feel like if a person does a mistake continuously, consciously, they just do it on purpose or no?
There are a lot of mistakes that we make on purpose. The problem is we're just afraid to call them by. We're afraid to call things by their proper names. We should call things by their proper names. It makes matters simpler. Like, I'm thinking of, I'm thinking of about a dozen people that are all flying through my head right now. I'm one of them. When we're thinking about the kinds of mistakes that people make over and over and over again. The problem is that it's how you want to live. It's how you want to live. What's wrong with how you, again, selfishness isn't living the way you want to live. Selfishness is expecting other people to live the way that you want them to live. And so if there's something that you like, if there's, like I'm thinking, sorry, there's one that keeps flying through my head of this person I know who gets in, she's in an unhealthy relationship. It's hard to articulate exactly. It isn't like it's destroying her life. It just isn't helping her life. And it's not helping his life either. But they're kind of there, and they seem to enjoy each other's company. So we just think, like, why not? But they always refer to it as a mistake. Oh, I keep going back to it. It's such a mistake. I don't know why I keep going back to it. Really? You don't know why you go back to it? It's because you love the person, and you want to, and you get some sense of satisfaction, enjoyment from being there. Oh, but I shouldn't. Ah, but you do. And there's what you should do, and then there's what you want to do. Those are usually two very different things. You're blessed if those two things are in alignment. If what you want to do is in alignment with what you should do. That would be a great thing. Wouldn't that make matters so much simpler for you? But they're not. A lot of times they're a little bit askew. And that's what makes things difficult, because the things that we want are the things that we're not supposed to want. The things that we want to do are the things that other people will shun. Those are the things we bury down into the shadow. And we hope that nobody notices those things about ourselves. And we're almost afraid to confront them about ourselves. But that's what makes us feel so bad about ourselves. And then that bad feeling about ourselves is what leads us to make worse decisions, going back to what Franco was talking about with guilt. Because guilt stops us, an unearned sense of guilt, and an overwhelming sense of guilt, is a thing that stops us from doing the things in life that we should. And so, if we can get that in alignment, And then we can get our shadow in alignment with our persona, process of individuation, aligning the shadow and the persona. Then we can accept those parts of ourselves. And we can see that sometimes, going back to Nietzsche then, that the things that we do in life, we do because there's something that we derive from it. And we get too caught up on what society would say about us, or what family would say about us. I think I told you guys this story about I had a brain tumor. Yes? And I was telling you guys that I was standing on the sidewalk holding that beautiful tricolor pamphlet, and the whole world was going by, and I was thinking, man, not one of these people here knows I'm dying, and not one person here, if I told them, would stop for anything more than some awkward moment of, what am I supposed to tell a stranger? Before they went about their lives and completely forgot about the experience within a few hours. Because their dog knocked over the water dish, or something like that. That would be a more pressing concern in their life than the fact that I was dying. And so it hit me as a very strange thing at that time, that all these people who were going by, that I would care about what they thought about me. The same people who would care more about their dog's water dish being knocked over than me dying, I would live my life to try to fit in with them and make them feel better about me existing alongside them. That's a strange thing, man. And I don't know anything that's more self-deprecating than that. And so you pursue the things in life that you want to pursue. Only make sure that they are the things that you do want to pursue. In other words, don't make sure it's not the things that you're being expected to pursue. Unless pursuing the things that you're expected to pursue actually do align with your values as well. In other words, some people like, you should all go to college, you should all go to college, you should all go to college, you should all go to college. And constantly you're being shoved into this. And then I wonder how many of us really want to go, and how many of us are going like this, kicking and screaming, or at least resisting a little bit because you don't want to go. Well, hell, if you want to go, you should go. If you want to learn, hell, if you're someone who really likes education and you like learning, and people will say, well, you can just get a library card. Yeah, or you can go to school and then get degrees for it. Cool. If you want to do that. Just because people are telling you to do it, just because society expects it from you, doesn't mean it's a bad thing. It can very well be a good thing. Conversely, just because society is trying to hold you back and stop you from doing something, that doesn't therefore make it a bad thing. It could very well be a good thing. What the hell is society? Have you seen society? You guys looked around lately? What the hell do we know what we're doing? And we'll live a life that corresponds to that, or confirms that, through, tacitly. In other words, by going along with it, we're saying we agree with it. And so there are people who pursue these things that they shouldn't pursue. But I don't know that they really see that it's a mistake. I think that they are repeating a line. I'm not supposed to do this. I'm not supposed to do this. I'm not supposed to want this. What will people say? So instead we go, oh, it's a mistake. So we can head off somebody else telling us it's a mistake. Like a person with a bad haircut who comes in and says, oh my God, I had a terrible haircut. Looks like I got into a fight with a lawnmower. And then we all laugh awkwardly because it's not really a funny joke, but we know what the person is saying. But it allows us to laugh at the thing that we're seeing, not at the thing that was just said. And then we all go, oh, okay. If I make fun of it myself, if I call it a mistake myself, maybe nobody else will. Maybe I'll be the only one who does that. So we'll call it a mistake. We don't think it is. Of course not. We just don't want somebody else to tell us it's a mistake. And we want to sound like we're smart. I'm making a mistake. I'm smart. No, we're not. Not if we keep doing it. Instead, we're a coward. We should just say, I'm doing it because I want to. That's acceptable. That's understandable. You know how much conversation that would save? Of people trying to talk you out of things, or trying to help you out of things? In other words, you say, like, you keep doing something that's a mistake, and rather than just say, you keep doing something that you want to do, but you call it a mistake. Now people are trying to help you correct the mistake. But that's not the thing that's really motivating you. The thing that's really motivating you is that you want to do it. So we're over here dealing with this issue of trying to correct a mistake, and that's not really the issue. It's a whole waste of time. You're watching the Batman during that time. Who knows? Something else.